Advancing SDGs, gender equality as an enabler for innovation, industry, and infrastructure, a session by Innocentia Malango. Innocentia is the founder, She Engineers. Over to you, Innocentia, for your session.
Thanks, Aparna, for inviting me to the session. And really, the work that you're doing has so much impact, and I'm happy to be walking this journey with you. I am sharing my screen. I hope you can see it. Please confirm.
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, thank you. So good day all. I'm honored by the invitation to be a part of the session today as part of the Global Founders Council. As I've been introduced, my name is Innocentia Mahlangu. I hail from Johannesburg, South Africa. I work as a senior professional civil engineer and project manager for an international consulting company named Hatch. I also founded a nonprofit organization called She Engineers, which is dedicated to attaining gender equality in engineering, and it provides we provide mentorship and developmental support for women in engineering. I'm also a member of the South African Institution of Civil Engineering, which has over 16,000 members. I volunteer in a number of portfolios, and one of those is being the chair of the Diversity and Inclusivity Panel, where we look to advance the gender agenda within the civil engineering fraternity. So in terms of my presentation today, I tackle cross-cutting topics in the context of infrastructure development opportunities and how that can link to sustainable development goals. But I specifically emphasize the importance of gender equality in the industries that I work in. And gender equality is an enabler for innovation, industry, and infrastructure. And I was inspired to discuss this topic because I thought, do we all have a common understanding where gender equality fits in when it comes to SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure? And do we see the untapped potential it presents? And further, are we as change makers conversant on our own role in advancing these two specific SDGs and how we can link both of them together? So the key message I wish to share today is that these concepts are interlinked, and we must not lose the opportunity to change the narrative in our industries. And I believe we can be the leaders of this change. And I'll give some practical examples about some case studies we've implemented in South Africa and what my She Engineers organizations hopes to achieve in this arena. So in terms of, sorry, I just want to check, did my slides move, Aparna?
It's not moving, it's on the first slide. So
okay, try again.
Okay, yes, second slide.
Okay, so to just give you a bit of background to myself, I completed my engineering degree in 2011, and I've been working in the engineering consulting space for over 10 years now. I spent the first few years of my career as a civil engineer specializing in railway infrastructure design and construction. And I've since moved on to leadership roles in project delivery as a project manager, supporting the mining, metals, and infrastructure sectors. And my role includes overseeing projects and implementation in various phases, including concept studies, pre-feasibility, feasibility, and then executing projects. I'm passionate about mentorship, project management, and advancing women. And in my many years of experience in these sectors, specifically the science, technology, engineering, mathematics sectors, I unfortunately found myself in the industry where women are persistently underrepresented. And I've seen firsthand the inequality in the sector. And I'll present a few statistics as well as I go through my presentation. But that's why I sought to be the change I wish to see in the world. And that was part of the genesis of the She Engineers organization. I found that one of the areas of intervention required in the industry is being able to provide visible role models and mentors for women in engineering or women in STEM, and particularly the role models and mentors with whom young women and girls can relate to, and those that really challenge the stereotypes around a career in engineering. So I found this to be quite important, and I found this to be one of the many ways we can advance gender equality in these sectors, which in turn will contribute to us being better implementers or better designers of infrastructure, of technologies, and being more innovative. So the genesis of She Engineers was born out of that. And our vision is to connect experienced female engineers with female engineering professionals and students. And we believe that by establishing the supportive network, we can fix what we term the leaky pipeline in STEM careers, and therefore contribute to advancing SDG number 5, which is gender equality. And this will in turn create better value in SDG number 9. And that's how that was our thinking and how we started the organization. But to further just set the context of why we established She Engineers, the United Nations Women emphasized the importance of gender equality, and they articulated the following: that gender equality is a right. Fulfilling this right is the best chance we have in meeting some of the most pressing challenges of our time. Women are not only more affected by these problems, but also possess ideas and leadership to solve them. The gender discrimination still holding too many women back holds our world back too. And this quote emphasizes the critical role that women will play in solving some of the pressing challenges associated with things like climate action and sustainability. So if I look more into detail in terms of the gender parity challenge in the engineering industry and context, according to the UN Women's Gender Snapshot, the percentage of female graduates in science, technology, engineering, mathematics fields was just over 30% globally in 2018. And sub-Saharan Africa averages around 32%, and other regions average around that. But you may think that these numbers are not as bad as you'd expect. But if we look at the challenge in a different way, we have what many call the leaky pipeline in STEM careers. What that means is that the intake of women in engineering studies and those that are graduating is not matched by the number of women practicing in the industry. So what this implies is that in as much as we can get more women in STEM careers, we can encourage them from high school level, we lose them across the systems for a variety of reasons. And this is why we need different interventions at different stages of development. So the World Economic Forum published the Global Gender Gap Report in 2020 and focused on the skills and the sectors of the fourth industrial revolution. And they reported that globally, 15% of engineering professionals are women. And this is also similar in my home country as well, and in South Africa. And these statistics are quite powerful, and it should make all of us think, how can we develop sustainable infrastructure, inclusive infrastructure? How can we be more innovative and make sure that our technologies are inclusive if a significant portion of the population is not engaged in developing such infrastructure? And climate action, I believe, opens up as well new opportunities for integrated infrastructure development and industry and innovation. According to the Project Management Institute, project-related activity will exceed $20 trillion US in the next 10 years. And this is driven by technological advancement, economic growth, but also projects advancing sustainable development goals, and some in response to climate action. And it's clear that engineering and STEM skills are important and integral in this arena. So women cannot be left out of this conversation. They cannot be outside of infrastructure development or innovation or technological advancement. And therefore, we need to ensure that our pipeline in terms of STEM careers, and specifically engineering, that we are shifting the needle and we're making sure that that pipeline is inclusive, because our infrastructure will not be inclusive if we don't implement interventions in that stream. So I want to touch on several points. And if we look around us, the world as we know it is designed through the lens of men, and we need to cater for more women at the design table to make sure that we design an equal world which caters for diverse needs. The skills of the fourth industrial revolution are different. The attributes of a fourth industrial revolution leader are vastly different. The World Economic Forum Future of Jobs research emphasizes the critical skills required as being creative thinking, empathy, problem solving, emotional intelligence, as well as interpersonal communication, in addition to analytical skills. Many women exhibit these skills naturally. And research shows that companies that are more diverse achieve better outcomes. Further, providing women and girls with equal access and representation in political, technical, and economic decision-making processes will help us fuel sustainable economies and will benefit society at large. And really the message here is, if we want to build inclusive and sustainable infrastructure as required on SDG number 9, and if we wish to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution, we need women at the design table. So how can we bridge the gap? I've presented a number of statistics about how there's gender disparities in the STEM fields, but how can we build the gap? So I've alluded earlier to something called the leaky pipeline, where we lose girls and women at various junctures of development. We need to look at the entire pipeline. We need to get kids into STEM education. We need to support students at higher education level, improve the retention of women in the industry after they graduate, and create an environment where the proverbial glass ceiling does not exist. And we need to create entrepreneurial opportunities and funding for innovators as well. So we need to have a holistic view on this, and the different interventions that we as change makers, as founders, we can lead in our own spheres of influence. And I just want to touch on a number of those innovations, or of those things that we can implement. So at basic education level, it starts at home. It starts at grassroots level. The way we raise girls versus young boys matters. The behaviors we encourage, the conversations we have with our nephews and nieces can make a difference. My father was in construction and was quite instrumental in my decision to make to pursue a career in civil engineering. So how we engage at basic education level and making STEM attractive, or engineering attractive, to both girls and boys at school level can have an impact in changing this pipeline, or this leaky pipeline as well. So there's different interventions that people can lead. We can adopt schools, and if you're somebody with a STEM background, go to a school and say, I'm going to show you what STEM can help you achieve. So we need to be deliberate as founders in having interventions at early childhood development stage. At higher education level, the dropout rate for women in engineering or women in STEM is also quite alarming. So young women studying in these fields, they should be provided visible role models and mentors. They need to be supported and have links to the industry so they can see themselves as well represented in industry. I mentioned at the start, the organization I started, She Engineers. We also go into higher educations, and we do presentations. We put women in front of these students, and we show them what a career in engineering as a woman can look like. And the more they see themselves represented, then they're encouraged to also stay in the industry. And as they enter the industry, retention becomes an issue as well. So at the industry level, when they start practicing, or when young women start practicing as engineers or mathematicians or people in the technology sector, they also need the necessary support, whether it comes from the organizations that they work for, or it comes from organizations outside, such as She Engineers or industry bodies, where they engage in discussions, they helped with career pathing, and they advise at different levels of their development. And then at the stage when women in STEM or women in engineering are seasoned professionals, they need mentorship, but also they need champions and sponsors. So that becomes increasingly important as they progress in their careers. So champions are people that advocate for you when you're not in the room. So we need more advocates for people that will champion women in these industries. And it's important that we all become champions, so we remove this proverbial glass ceiling in these industries, and also shatter stereotypes as well. And the other important thing when in the more experienced category is that women entrepreneurs need to also be supported. There's a bias in terms of funding female entrepreneurs versus male entrepreneurs. So that bias needs to be shattered as well at the industry level. And it's a whole ecosystem of how we can fix the leaky pipeline. So we need companies to also take an active interest in being committed to being more diverse and inclusive. Our hiring practices need to be inclusive. We need to offer mentorship and developmental programs for women as well. Equitable pay as well as a key issue why some women leave our industries, and also address unconscious biases and stereotypes in our industries. So companies, engineering associations, and governments also have a role to play in this ecosystem. And so in closing, or to summarize, the key points I wish you take away from this conversation is that there's a lot that needs to be done to achieve gender parity in engineering and STEM careers. Women need to be engaged to address the infrastructure needs of the future. The SDGs gender equality is a critical enabler to industry innovation and infrastructure. I've given some examples in my case studies about how each of us can be a change maker and make a difference in our sphere of influence. We need collaboration between the education sector, the private sector, public sector, our associations as well. And this also links to partnering for our goals in line with SDG number 17. And we also need to share learning, similar to this platform that Aparna Santosh you've created. We need to share our learning as well, so one industry can learn from the other. It's quite important in how we grow in this arena. And more importantly, each one of us needs to be an advocate and a champion for change, because gender equality is everyone's business. And in terms of just my parting slide, I think as founders and as leaders of our generation, we are the ones we've been waiting for. There was a time where we could change the situation, which was yesterday, but it doesn't mean that we're too late. We can still start today and be the change we wish to see in the world. Thank you, Aparna. And that's just my contact details if anybody wishes to connect with me.
Thank you, Innocentia, for that excellent session. I think the concept of virtual mentorship for women engineers is amazing, and experienced female engineers need to support new engineers, seeing the leaky pipeline you mentioned. And as you quoted, women possess the ideas and leadership to solve these pressing challenges if we support them in coming forward. And you rightly said, women cannot be left out of this conversation, and we need more women at the designing table while designing our future. Thank you so much for that powerful session.